Hey everyone, I am so excited to have a fellow investor here today with us. We were just talking a little bit before I started this interview, and there's a lot of exciting stuff to go over. So I'm probably going to butcher his name a couple times, but correct me if I'm wrong here. But Loic Moureau will be
That's
joining
pretty
us.
good.
Okay, he'll be joining us today. He's from Belgium, and English is his third language. How impressive is that? That's just incredible. He is going to go over his professional life and a lot about investing today. And we're going to hear about his journey, his mindset, even his portfolio a little bit. So, with that, let's just get right into it. So, Loic, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Hi, everyone. So I'm Loic Moureau. As Seth said, I'm also very excited to do this interview with you guys. I'm 34. I'm married for nearly 8 years now. I have one daughter. She's 4. And I actually work 2 part-time jobs. I work as a researcher at the University of Leuven. And the other part-time, I work as a care ethicist for a hospital group specialized in mental health care. On top of that, I also have I also work sometimes as a lecturer in ethics and philosophy on a freelance basis. So yeah, that's I hope that's everything you want to know about me.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thanks for getting into that. And you said you're in Belgium right now. Have you been to the US before?
Yeah, sure. I've been to the US only once. I have been to New York to visit a good friend of mine who was working there at Columbia University at the time. So it's actually a dream of mine to do 2 road trips in the US, one in the East Coast and one in the West Coast. But I that will probably have to wait until my daughter is a little older, and after I've collected a lot of dividends. So yeah.
I love
Um,
that. That is my dream and my goal as well. And as you know, and for everyone who doesn't know, I'm in the West Coast and I'm in California. So we are quite
mhm.
literally on opposite sides of the world here. A little bit of a different time zone as well.
Yeah, true. Here it's quite dark. It's already evening, so yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, thank you for sharing that and giving us a little bit um, of some background there. Maybe another background question here. How did you get into dividend investing?
So I actually only recently started actively investing in the stock market. Before, I mainly invested in real estate, and this came actually naturally. I lost my parents when I was 25 to cancer, so
Oh,
I
sorry to
inherited.
hear that.
Yeah. So I inherited the house where I grew up. That was far too big for me alone because I'm an only child. And also here in Belgium, it's a theme that will come up regularly. The inheritance taxes are up to 27%, so that's a lot. So I rented out the house and decided to buy a small apartment with a mortgage. And then a few years later, I got married, and we and my wife bought another house together. So that's a lot
Wow.
of real estate. So now I rent out 2 pieces of real estate. I pay 2 mortgages, although the interest rates are very low. It's under 1% actually. I profited from the economical environment at that time that is changing now the last couple of months. So I would consider it a good investment. I also invested actually a little bit in physical gold and silver as well.
Oh, wow.
So it's actually only about 2 years ago that my father-in-law started to invest in the stock market, and I got interested as well. So before I had some money in some funds at the bank, but I think it's a lot more exciting and to be more actively involved in the investing process. And also the bank charges 2 or 3% annually just to maintain the stocks, and if they do well, then maybe you'll be happy to pay. But if they're doing if they're doing not so well, you have to pay them as well. So that made me change my mind and take a more active stance. Actually, I also started with Lego investing on a small scale, which is a nice way to subsidize a very expensive hobby.
Lego investing.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah. It's a
incredible.
thing.
I
It's a thing.
literally,
It's a thing.
oh, so that's so funny you say that. I actually am obsessed with Legos. My favorite build is the Disney Castle. I absolutely love that one. And then I'm actually looking at in the corner of my room right now, one I haven't built yet. It's a Fender electric guitar build, and I haven't done it
Okay.
yet.
Is the
Um,
idea set? No?
you know, I could say this. It is I could definitely back you when you say it is not a, a, a cheap hobby. It
No,
is
it
it is
isn't. It
it
isn't.
is quite
So
expensive.
actually, what I do is like when I like a set, I buy, let's say, three of them, and then I let appreciate two of them, and I sell them, and then I get one for free. That's about the idea. And
That's
oftentimes it
incredible.
works. Not always, but oftentimes it works. So, and it's also because when you're passionate about something, you're more eager to learn, to dive deeper, and you can actually do a great investment. But of course, we're here
Wow.
to talk about the
Well,
stock markets. But Lego is also it's also a thing. Yeah.
thank you for sharing that. It's so much fun, and it is good to, as we do investing and we build our portfolios, it's nice to, right, have your passions on the sides for someone. It might be music, it might be golfing, it might be Lego building, whatever it is. So it's nice that, you can have that outlet too, to have that passion. And,
Mhm.
I must say I'm taking notes here and I'm writing down what you're saying. And it sounds like you have a well diversified portfolio: gold, silver, real estate, investing in the stock market, Legos.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yes, and no. Yes and no. It's well diversified, but I'm over invested in real estate. As I explained, like I have like three houses. So um, if you compare that to the money I have invested in the stock market or Lego or gold and silver, yeah, the real estate is a big chunk
yeah.
really. And I hope to like in 10, 20 years, I hope to be more diversified, and it's more like 50-50, like real estate and other assets.
Wow.
That's not the case today. And it has its downsides as well because real estate appreciated really well, at least here in Belgium, let's say the last 20 years. But given the different economical environment we're in today, this is starting to change, and real estate is not growing that fast anymore, is not growing at all.
Mm.
So I will make different choices in the future. Yeah.
Okay. Well, great. So we will, and just for everyone who's listening, very soon here, we're going to be getting the right into the core of dividend investing and some light bulb moments when it came to dividend investing for you. But before that, I'm just curious, what are some like major differences between investing in the stock market, in Belgium versus the US? I personally
Yeah.
don't know. So if you could maybe enlighten me, enlighten some of
Mhm,
the
mhm, mhm.
viewers about that.
Yeah, maybe I should start out with telling you a little bit about Belgium
Yeah.
first, because I'm not sure if everyone in the US really knows
No, please.
where or what Belgium is.
I definitely don't. So please enlighten me.
So like Belgium is a small Western European country. It has about 11 million inhabitants. With a very complex political system. I will spare you the details, but it involves lots of small political parties and lots of compromises. Our capital is Brussels. Most of the people in the US know Brussels. Belgium is well known for its tourism. It has some delicacies like chocolate and beers. They are actually the best in the world. But we also
Toblerone.
have a lot of pharmaceutical and petrochemical industry. We have next to no natural resources, so we really have to do with specific industries like the pharmaceuticals and petrochemical industries, because Belgium it's a very small country just next to France, Germany. The UK is just 50 miles away, just across the water. So we trade a lot, and have some specific industries and profit, I think, from the neighborhood of these bigger, stronger economies. Belgium is a typical welfare state with a very high quality and accessible healthcare. Actually, it's almost the best in the world. Very cheap education, like 1 year enrollment at the university costs about €1,000. That's like what $1,200 at the most. So you have very few people getting into debt because of their education. We also have several highly ranked universities like Leuven, like Ghent. And have lots of public services and infrastructure. But of course, the big downside of this is that we have taxation all over the place. And it's really high compared to most countries. And also our national debt is quite considerable. So yeah, taxation will be a reoccurring theme, and I think it's one of the main differences when also investing in the stock market. I think, like, at least from my perspective, the US is a super large economy with a strong monetary position because of the US dollar. And Belgium in itself is, of course, very small. Even though it's a member of the European Union, and in close proximities to countries like Germany, France, and the UK, it still are separate countries with separate legislation and sometimes separate currencies. So the options of investing within the borders of Belgium are quite limited, especially if you want to invest in larger blue chip industries. Therefore, I mainly have to invest in countries situated outside the borders, right? So I mainly invest in stocks that are situated in the US or in France, Germany, Netherlands. And this brings along costs. For example, there is fluctuation between currencies and, of course, taxes. And I also already gave you the example, like, for example, if I receive like €100 in dividends that are paid out by a company, I only actually receive 59. So
wow.
for Belgian stocks, it's 70. But so to give you an example, for instance, like a company like Coca-Cola, if it gives like $100, then the U.S. government will take 15, and from 85, the Belgian government will take another 30%. So I only receive 59 dollars actually. So you see that eats away a lot of your margins and compounding possibilities. Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. So then I'm curious, what was with all that being said then, what was kind of the light bulb moment for you when it came to dividend investing and you're going, wow, this is something that I want to build up in my portfolio?
Yeah. I think a light bulb moment is probably put too strongly, but I do believe in the strong psychological effects of receiving small gains along the way, for which you have a choice to reinvest them or use them for something else. With growth stocks, you only get something when you actually sell out on your stocks. So I think that, and this is something that is not often mentioned, I think, also in channels like this, is that like it's psychologically when you receive along the way all those dividends, I think that people take courage in that. And if you have growth stocks and then a recession occurs, then you can get really depressed. I had some friends that are I'm down like 30-40%. I can't take it anymore. I will sell out. And that's, of course, the big risk is that you buy when stocks are high and you sell when they are low. And so I think that when you invest in a dividend stock, I think you can be more stern and hang on to it because, well, for instance, like dividend stocks have a tendency to fall less when recessions occur. That's one thing, and two, you keep receiving dividends, so that's a great thing. Also, I think reinvesting part of your dividends and slowly compounding, growing your portfolio over time is an exciting thing. And I think dividend investors don't only look at or should not only look at the net worth of their portfolio, but look to a growing amount of shares they have, because more shares means more dividends. more dividends in the future. So I think that those are the reasons why I love dividend investing and why I started with it.
Wow. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head right there. You touched on a lot of key things that keep me motivated to keep on dividend investing, and that is seeing my annual income continue to rise, based off of dividends, despite what the share price might be doing, right? Like,
Mhm.
you might see a price get knocked down 20%, right? Say Coca-Cola is down 20%, but I'm still getting the same amount in dividends, and that
Mhm.
completely keeps me motivated. And when I do see that price go down, I go, oh wow, now it's on sale and I can buy more of
Yeah.
that stock, right?
Sure. So you have you can be happy both when your stocks go up and they go down. When they go up, you can say, "Yay, I made a profit," and when they go down, you can see it like an investment opportunity. So that's the way you should look at it. At least when you have, of course, stocks that you like and are valued okay.
That is 100% correct, and I'm so glad that you shared that. And if you don't mind sharing a little bit more, we might get into a more personal side of things here. But what holdings do you have in your portfolio, and how much currently do you have invested?
Okay. So as I said, I only started recently.
Okay.
So I have only like 40K invested. That's in euros, so like maybe $45,000, right?
Okay.
I have about 41 stocks in my portfolio at the moment, and that's a lot. So that's because I will probably talk with you about my regrets or things that I should do differently when I started all over. I think 41 stocks are a lot, but okay, it's manageable. So I have about 1,000 euros invested in every stock. I have some growth stocks. It's not only dividends. I have stocks like Alphabet, Meta, and PayPal. I only bought them recently because they were very low, and I do believe that they will appreciate in the come 3-5 years. But so most of my stocks are dividend stocks, divided 50-50 in European and US markets.
Yeah.
So most of my stocks are actually in quite defensive, large blue chips companies with a huge market share, like Coca-Cola, like Johnson and Johnson, like Apple, like Microsoft, like Home Depot. So I think that those are names that you know very well. There was also a nice spread in industries going from consumer staples over energy, finance, mining, communication, computer chips. I actually have a lot of computer chips companies for the moment, some REITs and so on. So I think there was maybe a side note, like diversifying regionally in dividend stocks also gives you income in various currencies, and this can be seen both as a pro and a con. Yeah, that's about my portfolio. I think that I could name some of the companies, the European things. There are some bigger ones like Unilever. You probably might have known. BMW. It's a large
Yes.
company
Yeah.
producing cars and motorcycles. But some of them are smaller. Like for example, I don't think that you will know any of the Dutch or the Belgian stocks I invested in.
Yeah.
So yeah,
What
but I
percentage of
think
your, sorry to interrupt you, I'm just curious, what percentage of your portfolio is US versus your, for your hometown having stocks? Do you have a heavier percentage in US stocks, it sounds like?
I think that's almost 50% in U.S. stocks.
Okay.
So because like most of the big companies in the world are are U.S. based, or they are not U.S. based, but they trade in U.S. Stock markets like the Nasdaq. So, for example, I also have Taiwan Semiconductor, but it's on the Nasdaq, right? And then I have about 50% of my stocks are European based, and most of them are in Germany, the Netherlands, some in France, and some in Belgium. I would like to have some Swiss and and UK stocks, but from a taxing perspective, that's not a good idea. So actually, and that's one of the downsides being a dividend investor from Belgium. Your options are more limited than when you live in a larger country or a country like the US. That's a major difference. Yeah.
Well, man, I'm learning a lot here. I absolutely love everything that you're saying. And again, people, for those of you who are listening, his third language is English. So this is just so impressive, man. You're doing such a great job.
Thank you.
Completely love what you're saying here. I think continuing on, just a little bit more on this, what are some of your favorite holdings that you have in your portfolio currently?
Yeah. I think that the stocks that I'm proud of are two stocks from Europe. So you might not or never have heard of him. One is a well-known bank here in Belgium. It's KBC. It's performing really well. I'm not going to say dive into KBC all over the world, but it's a bank that has a very nice dividend yield. I think it's about 6%. It's a very healthy bank. It's one of the market leaders here in Belgium. It's growing. It's a bank that I use myself. So I can see why they are market leaders around here. And so I invested in and it performed really well the past couple of months. Another thing is PostNL. It's the Dutch post and package concern, and it also performed really well. And it has a really high dividend yield of about 10%. But of course, you have to know that at least 30% will evaporate before I really get it. But
Wow.
so even with the taxes, it's okay. Of course, that's one way of being proud. Another thing is I'm also proud in investing in like local industries in Belgian or Dutch industries. I also invest in some stocks that from my perspective, make this world a better place, like Greenway Energies. It's a U.S. Stock that is really involved in green energy. It's a market leader, and so that's something maybe it doesn't appreciate as well in value. But I'm also proud to have them. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious here. You mentioned some yield. I'm just wondering what, if you know off the top of your head, what your yield is for your overall portfolio. I sit at about
I'd say it's about 4% before taxation. Taxation. So I'm aiming, and I know it's from a US perspective, it's quite measly and meager, but I'm aiming for 2.5% net. So to get that, I have to have about 4% yield before taxation. But I'm getting there. I think that about half of my stocks actually have a 4% dividend yield or more. Some of them are a little bit less, like like Microsoft, like Apple. They have a very small dividend yield. But it will grow over time. So I'm a patient guy. I have 30 years of investing or more in front of me. And if I don't, then it's my daughter's problem. So yeah.
Well,
I'm quite happy with defensive stocks that give me a 2.5% yield. Yeah.
Well, I think that perfectly leads into this next question that I wanted to ask you, which is, how did you go about building your portfolio and what is your strategy?
Yeah. First of all, I try to invest in companies that I understand. I think that is also advice from Warren Buffett. So that means that I have at least a basic idea about the products or the services that a company delivers. And in many cases, there are products or services that I use myself, right? like Coca-Cola, for example. You perfectly can imagine what these guys are doing. As I already mentioned, I mostly invest in large blue chip companies. Some of the companies that I invested in took a big hit in 2022. So that's when I invested a lot of, actually in November, December, October, November, December of 2022. For many stocks, it was a good buy then. That's not to say that these stocks won't go lower. I think the last couple of weeks they went up, but maybe some kind of a soft recession will come. But I think that many stocks were fairly valued at the end of 2022. And so I have a monthly goal. I try to set aside about 400 euros. That's more or less like $500 a month to invest in my portfolio. That's a lot less than your 2000 anyway. But you have to.
I currently don't have, a family or a lot of
Yeah.
bills right now, so I'm definitely able to invest, 60 to 70% of my income is able to go right into my portfolio.
Yeah. For me, it's a lot less. Like I make about 40K a year, and that's for Belgian standards, it's above average. It's not super high, but it's above average. But I have 2 mortgages to pay. I have a family to support. Maybe when the mortgages are paid off, I will invest more, and I should invest more. But for now, it's like only like $500 a year, a month. Sorry.
Yeah.
Further, when I buy a stock, I dive into the dividend. I look into the yield, the history, the growth. For me, the payout ratio is very important. I think of course, there are exceptions when a company is really well established. It's okay that they pay out like 80 or 90% of their earnings. But for most companies, I like to see the dividends, the payout ratio under 50%. I also, of course, look at the PE. I find a lot of information by looking at channels like this one, and general information given by my broker. And as I mentioned before, I try to diversify both regionally and industry-wise. Probably even a little too much, as I said before. Maybe we'll dive into that in a couple of minutes, but I think that I should buy more into ETFs like Schwab. It's a way to diversify as well, and not buying all the individual stocks, because I think that when I started, I was a little bit too excited to own small bits of all these great companies. I'm sorry.
No.
Maybe I got taken away a little bit. So yeah.
So going off of everything you just said, kind of segueing into this next question here, if you don't mind talking a little bit about what is your goal with dividend investing? I know you mentioned you have a daughter, a family, you have a 30-year time horizon, and which was another part of my question. Where do you see yourself in 20, 30 years?
So in 20 years, I'll be 54. I kind of hope to retire, or at least work less when I'm 60. I have legal rights to my pension when I get 67 in Belgium. So that's quite a while. Here also, I think it's important to nuance that retiring in Belgium is probably different than retiring in the US. Like, pensions are all right. Like, they are often higher than wages of people starting their careers, right? So I think that if I would retire right now, there is a calculation. I would receive about 2,000 euros every month, and so this will go up with inflation. So that's kind of all right. But also because of taxation, I think that Belgium is one of the countries with the highest tax rates in the world. I think it's close to 50%. For me, it's not manageable. to put all my money in my stock portfolio. So it will only remain a small part of my total assets. I hope to grow it, of course, and but I don't think it will be ever more than 20% of my total assets. And I will keep balancing it with real estate, with gold, with bonds. I think that bonds will get more interesting in the future. I don't know how it is in the US, but here a bond maybe yielded like 1%, maybe if you were lucky the past few years. So it's now the last couple of months it's really going up. I think that the yields are close to 3% now. We'll see what the Fed does in the next couple of months, but I wouldn't be surprised if they raised interest rates like maybe like with another 50 to 100 basic points. So I think that yields of bonds will go up and will become more attractive in the long run. So I think that for me, my dividend income will probably always be some passive income on the side, and of course, I hope to grow it and I hope to do well. But I don't think that it's something that I will be able to live off in 20 or even 30 years. I don't think so. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm. It's difficult for someone from Belgium to not be very how do you call it, like ambitious. I think that people from the US are more outspoken ambitious, and I think it's a good thing. In Belgium, ambition is something that's a little bit frowned upon. But I think that dividend investing is something that I'd like to do very much. I hope to grow it. I like being actively busy with the stocks and looking them up and looking for value stocks. But I think it will be something on the side that I can buy some extras with. I also think maybe I told you before that I hope to invest more in some ETFs next to individual stocks like Schwab. I think it's a very good ETF. I also think that I will never ever really sell out of my dividend stocks that I have right now, unless the business is really take a different turn. And that's also something that I like about dividend investing, that actually you don't have to, once you found a good stock, a good company, you can buy in and actually leave it just there for a couple of years. That's a general idea, I think. So in that way, it's something that I hopefully can pass on to my daughter and even grandchildren, if they take an interest, of course, because you never know. Yeah.
Well, that's something that's really popular here. And you're gonna have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I hear a lot about the FIRE movement, the financial independence retire early movement, and a lot of people, have that movement in mind, and they associate it with dividends, and they kind of put all their eggs in one basket, meaning they are all for dividend investing, and that's what they're going. But it sounds like, with your situation with the taxation and, kind of being a little more reserved, you have a lot of different streams of income. So I guess this might be two questions that are kind of off the cuff here. Have you heard of the FIRE movement?
Yes,
Are you familiar with it? And
I'm
what are your
familiar
thoughts
with
on
it.
it? Yeah.
I'm familiar with it. I think that here in Belgium, I don't think it's really a hype. I think that it's, as I said, because I think that there are some cultural differences, I think, between US and Western European countries. I think that we're more defensive. Ambition is a little bit frowned upon. So when very young people like yourself come out and say, I want to get rich really fast and I want to live off my dividends or other means, that's something that people actually frown upon a little, or say be very cautious.
Wow.
And I also would say, because of the environment, because of the taxation, it's more difficult over here than in the US. But of course, um, risks are different as well because we have a welfare state, you know, in the US, if you don't have insurance and you get sick really bad, I think that's a very bad situation to be in. In Belgium, we have excellent healthcare and it costs very little, right? So you have to see the upsides and the downsides, but I think it's very, I think that it's something that's involved with risk. You can have great rewards, but it can go wrong really bad as well. So
Yeah.
I personally, for myself, I wouldn't put all my eggs in the same basket. I haven't done it for myself. I wouldn't advise it for my daughter or anyone else. For example, I think like if you buy a house, and you take care of it, it's also an asset that will appreciate in time, probably. At least it keeps its value, but you have the extra benefit of actually living in your house, right? So you win twice. So I think that having your own house to live in and invest in that is a typical investment that you profit twice from. You can't eat your dividends, right? Or you can't eat your
Yeah.
stock, but you can live in your house and profit from it. So I think that everyone should ponder about what is an asset, what is a liability, because a house can be a liability, of course. But yeah, I would be
Yeah.
cautious about getting all your money into dividends, of course. And you touched upon this several times in your podcasts that of course you can buy stocks for the dividend yield and look only to the yield, and you can find stocks out there that have a yield of like 10%, but they won't grow, or they would probably won't grow. And so in 10 years you have that same yield, but everything has become more expensive. And so you have to look not only to the yield but also to the dividend growth and the
Yeah.
value of your stock in itself.
Yeah, that's something that
Um,
really clicked with me was when I understood dividend growth and
mhm,
dividend growth rate and not chasing yield. And everything you're saying is really resonating with me. You
yeah.
know, I did just turn 25, and trust me, I have had my fair share of, it's funny because dividend investing to me is a really slow path to
Mhm,
wealth, and
yeah.
something that's really popular here in the US, especially with kids my age and the younger generation, is getting rich quick. And to them, getting rich
Yeah.
quick is investing in, some type of uh, like Bitcoin or Ethereum, right?
Mhm,
And or starting their own e-commerce business, which is a huge thing right now, like drop
yeah.
shipping or starting a product. And that to me is, when
Yeah.
I think of get rich quick, that's what I think of, because I fell for
Mhm,
that at a young age. I fell for that when I was
yeah.
20 years old, and I lost
Yeah.
a lot of money.
I think it appeals to many young people. And of course, there are some people who got really rich by investing in cryptocurrencies, but I think there are a lot more people that actually lost a lot of money investing in cryptocurrency. I for myself, of course, I'm not old, but I'm 10 years older than you. I never even invested 1 cent in cryptocurrency because I actually really believe that you should invest your money in something that has intrinsic worth. And of course, when you buy a stock, you buy a piece of a company. When you buy gold, you have actually raw material. When you buy a house, it all has intrinsic value. Even Lego, at some point, it has an intrinsic value. Um, crypto cryptocurrency, I never saw it really, and so I might be wrong because I know there are some interesting applications, but it's like money itself. Money in itself doesn't really have any value. So no, I like to invest in things that I can actually grab.
Yeah, no, you're definitely touching on, especially a lot of the things that Warren Buffett talks about, which is, things with intrinsic value.
Mhm.
And especially with cryptocurrencies, you hear a lot of people talking about,
Yeah.
oh, like the blockchain might be effective in the
Mhm.
future, and that might be something that has an
It's a very interesting technology.
yeah, exactly.
But cryptocurrency in itself, it's thin air, and we've seen that the last couple of months. Of course, it's my opinion.
No, I
It might
100% agree
recover a
with you.
bit, but
Speculation, right, as they say.
yeah, yeah, I think it's
Speculation.
pure speculation.
I agree.
Yeah.
Man, well, I love that we talked about that because we didn't, just for everyone watching, we didn't have this necessarily planned in the interview that we're having here, but I'm glad that it went down that route because I think it's really important, especially for
Mhm.
younger people who are listening right now. And we're going to touch on kind of some mistakes you made here in just a sec. But before we do that, and you kind of did touch on this a little bit, but what excites you the most about
Mhm. Yeah.
dividend? Yeah, dividend
We've
investing.
we've we've been over a couple of teams. So I thought
Mhm.
about I told about the psychological effect, the compounding effect, but also I think maybe if I can touch upon one more theme is I think that taking an interest in stocks in general makes you more interested in society and the world as a whole. I find
Mm.
it makes you look more into politics, into the general economy, into environment. So I think it makes you more sensitive. So ever since I started in investing in stocks, I became even more interested in politics, in the news, in what's going on in the world around me. And so I think that's a beautiful side effect of investing in the stock market. So and I think that it's something that I also wish for young people to have an interest in the world around them. So this sounds so very old guy. Maybe I changed since I became a dad, but I'm also a teacher, as I said before. So I think it's a nice thing when people actually take an interest in politics, in economy, because I see so many people, so many young people as well, not really being interested in all these things. They are in some way cynical, or they get overcome, I think, by the many challenges we face in this world. There are a lot of challenges, especially regarding the environment. There is cultural differences. There is, God forbid, there is a war going on in Ukraine and Russia, and maybe there will be further conflict between the U.S. And the West, and on the one hand, and China, and maybe some other countries. So I know there are a lot of challenges, and I know it's very depressing when you focus on that. But I think it's important to have an interest and to also see the good things happening around us. I think when you look at how people are living today and you compare that to how people were living like 50 or 100 years ago, and I think that also Buffett told something about it. I think that most regular people now live in effect more comfortably than kings 200 years ago. So that's a great thing. So keeping hope. But I'm starting to preach, so I'll stop at
Uh,
here.
No, that's an extremely good point that you brought up. And I actually find that true with myself, something that I didn't even recognize until you said it, which was you definitely find yourself looking more into society, especially with these companies that I'm investing in, like Microsoft, with Apple, and the moves they're making and how it's going to affect society, and how it's going to affect my portfolio,
Yeah, yeah,
because now I have a piece of the pie, so
yeah,
it is important to keep on touch of that. So that's very
yeah.
true, and I absolutely love that point that you made. And it's funny because I just
Mhm.
watched that interview with Warren Buffett when he talked about how we are living just middle class, even lower class individuals are probably living much better lives than the wealthiest people from 150 200 years ago, right?
Yeah, that's
Because
true.
yeah, so I think I love that you said
Yeah.
that.
Of course, what I don't want to say is that if when you take an interest in politics and general economy, that you can start to predict the future. That's not what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah.
But for example, since I started investing in stocks, I see myself asking more. Just the people I meet. So where do you work? Is it a good company? What where do you think it's heading? So you might find actually good opportunities just by talking people and talking about their work and where they work and how they work. And what do they think is a good product or a good company or a good service? Because that might be something that you can further look into. Yeah.
Wow, well, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. We're gonna kind of get into maybe again some more personal things here, and we were
Mhm.
talking about some maybe investing mistakes that you have made, and maybe is there anything you wish you would have done differently?
Yeah, sure. Maybe I should start out that I can't say I have really serious regrets about any company really that I bought, at least not yet. But
That's
I
good.
did, I but
Yeah.
I did make some mistakes. And I think one of the biggest mistakes I made was probably to start out with the wrong broker. And it's still my broker today. It's not that it's a terrible broker, but it's something that I'd like to mitigate in the future. Because since I only invest like small amounts at once, if they charge like 15 euros in costs, percentage wise, that's quite a lot, right?
Definitely.
And I think I know that because I talk with people more, and actually there are not that many people, at least not in Belgium, that actually invest in an individual stocks, right? So there are many Belgians who have like some fund, some bank, uh, but they don't
Yeah.
really know what's in it.
Yeah.
But I of course when you take an interest in investing, that you meet other people that are also interested, and so I know that there are some other brokers out there that charge a lot smaller cost and are very good and have very professional information or a help desk. So I probably will change my broker in the near future. So that's something that's maybe a piece of advice when you start out. Maybe also dive into the brokers and compare them. Um, as I touched upon already, I probably should have diversified a little less. That's to say, I should invest it in the ETFs like Schwab for a larger spread. In fact, this also has to do a little bit with my broker, because my broker only gives me a little limited amount of stocks and ETFs I can buy into. For example, Vanguard is not available on my broker.
Mm.
It has something to do with that as well. But as I said, I don't really have serious regrets. I also should try and hold a bigger cash position
Okay.
for buying opportunities. I see
Mm.
that I have a tendency when I have like 1 or 2 thousand euros in cash to immediately buy some stock that I am interested in, or buy a bigger share of a stock that I already have. And maybe I should be more I don't know, defensive and holds some more cash on the side for buying opportunities. And I also saw actually in your portfolio that you don't really have that much cash on the side as well.
It's funny, as you're writing down, I'm taking notes, and in my broker accounts, I don't have any cash in that in M1 Finance. They have an M1 spend section where they have cash, but how I do it is I have a separate checking account.
Okay.
And in that checking account, I have about $3,000. And
Mm,
what I do is I just dollar cost average every day into the portfolio, every day into
yeah.
the portfolio. But that is something that I just wrote that down. It's something that I'm working on also, is having a bigger cash position,
Mhm.
so that I can buy at the right times. And
And
that's
also, if you if
100%
you
right.
if you want to do a lot of small exchanges, then you need a broker that doesn't charge a lot. right?
Yeah,
And so that's that's something I really can't do. I think like for a US stock, um, I think when I buy for like $1,000, I have $15 to $20 expenses. It's a little less
wow.
for European or Belgian stocks, but it's mostly more than 1%. So like let's say that the first dividend yield that you get is just paying back your costs, right? Are also, because it's Belgium, there are some taxes, so it's not getting around to it in total. But let's say I can cut these costs in half with another broker. Yeah.
Wow, yeah, I am thankful because I use M1 Finance, and thankfully there are no fees when you do make a transaction. There aren't any
Mhm.
fees. And I wasn't aware. I mean, I'm really I totally wasn't aware of the taxation, the fees, especially where you're at. I really was not aware of
Yeah.
all of that going on. It's
You
very
know, like
interesting.
great healthcare and education is very expensive.
Yeah.
And so we also have, and I think that's the same in the US, we have a population that is getting older. We have a lot of baby boomers that are now having pensions. So they're actually the richest part of our population, but they're also a very big part of our population. And so all these pensions, all this healthcare, all the education, well, yeah, and the money has to get from somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So that's
I'm
why
just
there is a lot of taxes. Yeah.
wow. I'm just curious about your thoughts on this. And I hope I'm not overstepping here, but in the US it is right completely different, less taxation, but maybe
Hmm.
not the best healthcare in some areas, right? Not everyone has
Hmm.
access to it. But with where you're at, it sounds like great healthcare, great education, but your personal finances might take a hit. Do you
Hmm.
think that that is worth it? The give and the take here. Do you think that you're okay with the situation that you're in right now?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think about it a lot, and I think that it comes down to your political view.
Hmm.
I think that a middle ground is probably the best.
Yeah.
I think in Belgium and in most European countries, regulation taxation is too high. But there are, of course, there are a lot of benefits with the healthcare education, and of course, it's a safer environment to make mistakes. It's a safer environment to have a kid with a disability and so on.
Mm.
Or when you get sick and you don't choose when you get sick, right? So in that regard, I think a welfare state
Yeah.
has definitely some ups, but there are some downsides, right? I think it's also what does your government do with the tax money, right? And I think Belgium is a special case because it's a very small, but it's also a very complex country. I think that for example, even though like we have 11 million inhabitants, right? That's about the same as New York, right? So you
Mm.
guys in New York, you have like a mayor and a city. How do you call it? City politicians. Sorry for I can't find the word. And so in Belgium, we have several governments, and our federal government is led by 7 parties, which includes liberals, socialists, Christian Democrats, the Green Party. So as you can imagine, there are lots and lots of compromises being made, compromises that
Mm.
cost money. So
Definitely.
I think there are some examples like Switzerland, like Norway, that are also welfare states, but do a better job, like return on investment wise. Okay, so I think Belgium is a
Yeah.
great country to live in. I think there are maybe like 200 countries in the world. There are maybe 20 countries that are better, and maybe 200, 180 countries that do worse. So I'm rather well off. But I think for a healthy young person with a lot of ambition, the States is a better place to be at. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm really enjoying what you're saying here. Going on the, kind of back to these investing mistakes here, which are choosing the right broker. You yourself wishing you were diversified. Your diversification, having a bigger cash position. Is there anything else that you had? If not, I do have another question that I wanted to get right into, which was advice for young investors.
Okay. What advice would I give? I think be patient and don't be afraid. If you buy a good stock, you can practically forget about it, right? And so also, like, everyone has a right to make his or own mistakes. That's experience, right? So you can learn from the experiences of others, and that's wisdom, and that's also very very important. But I think that everyone has a right to his or her own mistakes. And when you're young and you make a mistake, you have lots of time to make up for it, right? Also be patient. Dividend investing, like you said, it's something that takes time. And when you're young, you have the luxury of investing in a stock that has good value, but has a small dividend yield, but it will appreciate over time. And that's different for someone who is 60 or 70 years old and what needs cash now, right? So you make different choices. I touched upon it. Have an interest in the world around you. I think investing really helps. Also, choose your broker wisely. And maybe for dividend investor, count stocks, not money, right? I think, like, of course, it's never funny to take a hit. Like in 2022 when people were up and then they were down like 30%. It's not funny, right? But if you get your dividends and you reinvest them, you can count your stocks. And if your amount of stocks has gone up, sorry, I think you'll be better off in the future, right? Maybe in 5 or 10 years from now, and see it so as an investment opportunity when stocks are low. Maybe a point of caution: dividends, of course, can also not grow or can be cut, or there are taxes. I think that's also something that's overlooked also in channels like this or on YouTube in general. I think that there is a little focus on the downsides of dividend investing, or well, downsides, not really. But you have to be cautious, of course, that you can't really say, okay, lots of people, yourself included, and maybe myself, say, okay, when in 20 years I will have so many dividends and it will have grown to this amount, and sometimes there are incredible numbers. And I'm not pessimistic, but of course, dividends can also stop growing, or the dividend can be cut for some times. So that's something that you have to be cautious about. I think I also said it, start young. I think it's incredible that you are 25. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this interview, is because I really admire someone your age, with so much experience already, and is daring to do this. So that's great. And so maybe one last piece of advice: don't put all your eggs in one basket. I think it's perfectly fine to diversify in real estate, in stocks, but also maybe things like art, like Lego. There are lots of great things out there. There are some like cars that appreciate in value. Of course, all these things, none of these things comes easy, right? You have to. They all have a learning curve. You have to invest time. There's not something like cheap money, right? I don't think that anything that is good probably ain't free. So you have, at least the least thing what you have to do is invest time, right? But I should say, like, diversify and also live a little. like I said, if you invest in your own house, you can profit from that. You can really enjoy having a home, and dividends. Yes, okay. It gives you extra income, and you can buy nice things. But of course, there should be room for buying nice things as well, right?
Yeah, I definitely resonate with what you're saying, and especially I really like how you mentioned kind of talking about how past performance isn't a promise of future returns. And I
Hmm.
think a lot of dividend investors can get kind of caught up in, oh, this is a sure 100% way to to have my future be solid. And yes, I think dividends is definitely a as pure form of passive income as it gets. But
Hmm.
again, past performance, especially of these companies, I mean, isn't 100% a promise of these future returns. I mean, if you look at companies like the VFC, right? It's a stock and the US here that has brands like North Face and Vans, and they're down almost 80%, and they're,
Hmm.
a dividend king. They've paid dividends for 50 years or more.
Yeah.
And so it's just showing that, sometimes these big, huge companies, they might fall. And if you are heavily
Yeah.
invested into them, and if you're relying on them for,
Mhm.
future returns, it might not work out. So
Yeah.
I enjoy how you touched about that. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
and I think that we're living, and that's also something worrisome, that we're living in an increasingly complex world, right? And so we can imagine the world in 2 or 3 years from now, but it's very hard to imagine the world in 10 or 20 years from now.
Yeah.
And I think artificial intelligence, for example, will take a real boom. I'm quite sure of that. So that's also a reason why I'm invested in technology stocks. But it's hard to imagine where the world is going, and so you can't be for sure that even so, a company like, I don't know, like Coca-Cola or Pepsi, that are so dominant right now, will be dominant in 20 years.
Yeah.
I think they will still be here. I think they will be dominant, but I'm not entirely sure, because the world might look totally different.
Right.
So that's also why I say yes, it's passive income, but you have to invest time. You have to take an interest in things. You can't really say, okay, I invest and do nothing for the next 10 years. So maybe I exaggerated myself a couple of minutes
Yeah.
ago. But
No,
yeah,
definitely. This is all great stuff. I'm love it. Just real quick here, I have about
yeah,
4 minutes left.
okay.
Unfortunately, this Zoom thing is going, but within this 4 minutes,
Hmm.
maybe this is a perfect time just to quickly say, what is something that you plan on doing in the future with dividend investing? This could be something fun. What is something that you plan on doing in the future with this?
Yeah. So as I said, I'm very comfortable where I am now. My stocks are up, but if they are down, I probably would see a buying opportunity. So um, maybe the only regret that I have is that I didn't start out 10 years ago. Not because of the possible financial results, but more like it's really fun doing, right?
Yeah,
So
definitely.
holding individual stocks is not something that really bothers me. But as I said before, I think that I will diversify more in another way, by investing in dividend yielding ETFs. And yeah, I'm looking into some stocks for the and ETFs for the future. So the ETF like Schwab really interests me. I'm currently looking into T. Rowe Price, Philips, Tyson Foods, HP.
Yep.
So there are some stocks that I might buy in the near future. For example, Tyson Foods. I think that because of the economic future is not really certain. If you buy into like consumer staples, they will probably do well, or well, hold their ground anyway. they're nothing particularly exciting that I will do in the near future.
Well, yeah, I personally hold right now currently T Rowe and SCHD, and I'm definitely building up a position into SCHD. I absolutely love
Mhm.
that ETF, and you know, just from my own
Yeah.
research and my opinion, that's one that I will be building up.
Yeah.
But you know,
But I think that that there will probably, I think there will probably be a small, like a soft recession in the next couple of weeks and months. So I think that not is not the idea. Now is not the ideal moment to buy in. I would wait a little longer and build up my cash position. But of course, if you invest in like ETFs like SCHD, of course you can, if you put money in there every month, I think that you can't really go wrong. That's for sure.
yeah.
Okay.
Wow, this has been awesome. I went through all my questions that I have, and I want to thank you so much for your time today
You're
and for
welcome.
sharing about your portfolio, about your dividend journey, your investing mindset, and definitely informing us about investing in Belgium and internationally, and the upsides and the downsides, you know, that it has. I've learned so much, and again, thank you for everything. Is there any last words you want to say? I got about 40 seconds here.
No,
Um,
no, no. Thank you for the opportunity. I really enjoyed doing this, even though I was a little nervous and I am a little mad about my English, but okay,
it
it was
was
fun doing. So
it was
thank you.
of course you did a great job. I think a lot of people are going to enjoy this. And guys, thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned. I make videos every day. Loic Moureau, I'm sorry if I just butchered that. Thanks again.
Bye.